Well, hello, Community Bible Church. Welcome to another edition of Verse a Day on this Tuesday afternoon here. And so I hope that you're having a good week so far. And we're going to get back into 1 John 4:18. 1 John 4:18 here. And so the verse says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love." All right, so it starts out. This is a familiar theme for those of us that have been following along here in First John. But it starts out by saying there is no fear in love, and those two themes are the main themes of this verse, obviously, as well. Now, I think, kind of understand this from a human perspective that there's no fear in love. That for those that you love and those that people that love you, you shouldn't fear them. But there's a good question here because you might say, well, what about some of the verses that say, but the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom or knowledge, where it talks about having that fear for the Lord. And so there is different aspects of fear. There's different, just like with many different English words, has many different definitions along with that, or different implications. Like a trunk could be an elephant trunk, it could be the trunk of your car, it could be something that you carry around. There's all sorts of trunks there, a tree trunk, whatever. And that same way, the idea of fear kind of has a couple different implications there to it. So number one, the most common usage, especially that of the New Testament, is the word phobos, and it is phobia is where we get that English word from. So it literally just means a fear, and means that you're terrified, you're scared of something. There is still that same Greek word, though, can have some implications of reverence for somebody, especially somebody in authority. But that's not the way that it's being used here. I believe that the way it's being used here is obviously just going to be that you are scared of something, that you're terrified of something. And so it rightfully comes out and he says, there is no fear. There is no fear in love, all right? That love, if there is true love, then there shouldn't be fear. Certainly this was there can be reverence there. So for my father, I had reverence for him, and I certainly feared disobeying him by all means. But there wasn't a loving relationship. Does not fear that if you do something wrong, they're gonna stop loving you, or they're gonna that you'll no longer be their son or their daughter or something like that, or no longer be their spouse. If there's true love there shouldn't be fear. So there's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. All right, so perfect love. Now, if you remember back in verse 17, you can go back and read that here. But back in verse 17, it talked about that love is perfected among us, right? And that truly is ultimately because God abides in us and we can abide in Him, and love is going to be perfected through that process, an ongoing process there. And so, this perfect love, this love that's being perfected for those that are abiding in Christ, is actually going to cast out the fear. All right, so you might have fear as whenever you before you get saved. You might even have fear as you become a Christian and you're maturing in your walk, that God might turn his back on you, that God might say, you know what, that one sin was one too many times, enough is enough, this has got to end, and throw you out. Now, but that is ultimately going to be cast out by that perfected love, that perfect love that is inside of us, that's being made perfect, that's helping us be made perfect. Then it goes on to say, for fear has to do with punishment. Fear has to do with punishment, and that's certainly why, if I ever did fear my father, it's because he could punish me, right? And that's where that fear, even that sense of reverence, or that actually that terrified fear comes from, is because you think that God will punish you. But if God abides in you and has perfected love inside of you, then you will not be punished, because that punishment is not for those that he abides in. And so it says, for fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. So, if you are being fearful, ultimately, look at how many times that the word fear is here. Look at how many times the word love is here. You know why that all these words, fear and love, are in here? It's because they're quite the opposite. That love, whenever we truly have this perfected love, that's on one side of the scale. And if we are truly perfected in that, or as we are becoming more and more like Jesus Christ, as He is abiding in us and we are abiding in Him, then that fear will slowly start to be cast out, thrown out. Now, that's not even just a word to be nudged out, but no, it's like you take it and you throw it. That's what that word means. And so that love is going to throw out all that fear. And don't you just wish sometimes that you could just get rid of all the fear, get rid of all the heartache, get rid of all the trouble that we have in this life? Well, you can. And it's through the perfected love of Jesus Christ. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope that you have a great rest of the Tuesday, Lord willing. I'll see you here tomorrow.